There is a photograph of her. She is 18 years old, blonde hair, a cheerleader's smile, the kind of smile that takes up the whole frame. She is standing on the deck of a cruise ship, the ocean stretching out behind her, 2 days before she will die. She does not know that yet. Nobody on that ship does. Her name was Anna Kepner. She was from a small town in Florida. She was going to graduate in May. She wanted to join the Navy. She had braces. On the night of November 6th, 2025, Anna left dinner early. She told her family her mouth hurt. She went back to her cabin to lie down. At 7:38 p.m., a security camera on Deck 8 of the Carnival Horizon recorded her walking through the door of cabin 8343. That camera is the last thing on Earth that ever saw her alive. What happened inside that cabin over the next 3 hours is what federal prosecutors will eventually describe in a Miami courtroom using words like forcible, asphyxiation, psychopathy. What happened inside that cabin is why her 13-year-old brother, who slept in that same room that night, now wakes up in the dark and cannot remember if he heard her or only dreamed it. What happened inside that cabin is the reason a 16-year-old boy walked off that ship 2 days later and into a story that the FBI is still trying to finish. This is not a story about a missing girl. Anna was not missing. She was 3 feet away the entire time. Underneath the bed, wrapped in a blanket, buried under a wall of orange life vests, stacked so carefully that her own family stepped over her for 9 hours and never knew. This is the story of Anna Kepner, a family vacation, a locked cabin, a ship still sailing toward Miami, while somewhere below deck, one teenager was already gone, and another was deciding what to do with the body. There is a photograph of her, 18 years old, standing on the deck, smiling. In 2 days, she will be dead. And the person federal prosecutors say killed her is standing just out of frame. Titusville, Florida, a small town on the edge of the Indian River, built in the shadow of the old NASA launch pads, the kind of place where everybody knows everybody's children by their nicknames. Hers was Anna Banana. Anna Marie Kepner was born on June 13, 2007. She was a senior at Temple Christian School, class of 2026, an A student, a varsity cheerleader, a girl who was baptized in her church just 6 months before she died. She loved dolphins, butterflies, TikTok videos, fries with ranch. She was going to join the U.S. Navy after graduation. After that, she wanted to become a canine police officer, a girl who loved animals and wanted to wear a badge. Her family was blended, the way many American families are. Her father, Christopher, her stepmother, Chantel, children from both sides, siblings, step-siblings, a house full of teenagers. And one of those step-siblings was a 16-year-old boy named Timothy Hudson. He had a baby face. He was quiet. He had been living under the same roof as Anna. In early November of 2025, the family barred the Carnival Horizon for a 1-week cruise through the Caribbean. A vacation, sunshine, photographs, the kind of trip you remember forever, for the right reasons. That is not how this trip ended. November 6, 2025. Dinner service. Anna was at the table with her family. Then she stood up. She said her mouth was hurting, her braces, an upset stomach. She wanted to lie down. She walked back to cabin 8343 alone. The Carnival Horizon has cameras in nearly every hallway. The footage from that night is, according to court records, almost continuous. At 7:35 p.m., the cameras recorded Timothy Hudson entering cabin 8343. At 7:38 p.m., 3 minutes later, the cameras recorded Anna entering the same cabin. That is the last frame of her life on record. At 7:51 p.m., her 13-year-old half-brother poked his head into the room. Just for a moment. He saw Anna. He left. He did not know he had just become the last person other than the accused to see his sister alive. For the next 3 hours and 22 minutes, Anna and Timothy were alone, inside that cabin. And somewhere in that 3 hours, according to the U.S. Attorney's Office for the Southern District of Florida, Anna Kepner stopped breathing. She was, federal prosecutors allege, asphyxiated mechanically, by force, by an arm wrapped tight across her throat, a bar hold. What does a girl do in those last seconds? Does she fight? Does she try to scream? Anna's younger brother would later tell family members that earlier in the night he had heard yelling and something that sounded like chairs being thrown, coming from behind that locked door. Let me ask you something, right now, as you're watching this. If you had heard that on a cruise ship, would you have stopped? Would you have knocked? Would you have done anything? Tell me in the comments. I want to know. This is the part that is hard to say out loud. At 10:13 p.m., the cameras recorded Timothy Hudson stepping out of cabin 8343. He looked left. He looked right. According to the lead prosecutor, it was the only time all night he checked the hallway like that. At 10:53 p.m., he stepped out again. This time, he hung a privacy sign on the door. At 11:44 p.m., he went back inside. Around midnight, Anna's 13-year-old brother came back to the cabin to go to sleep. The door was locked. His stepbrother was inside. Timothy made him wait in the hallway for about 2 minutes. A 13-year-old boy, standing in a ship's corridor at midnight, waiting to be let into his own room. When the door finally opened, the lights were dim. The beds were made. There was a privacy sign on the doorknob. He brushed his teeth. He climbed into his bunk. He closed his eyes. He slept for 9 hours. And the entire time he was sleeping, his sister was on the floor beneath him, wrapped in a blanket, stuffed under the bed, hidden behind a stack of orange life vests, arranged so carefully, so deliberately, that even a person standing in the middle of the room would not see her. According to court filings, sometime that night, someone took Anna's cell phone, smashed it, walked up to one of the open decks, and dropped it into a trash can. The next morning, November 7th, at 11:17 a.m., a cabin steward entered 8343 to clean. He looked under the bed. That is the moment everything changed. Because of where she died, this case did not belong to any state. It belonged to the federal government. The Carnival Horizon docked at Port Miami the next morning. FBI agents were waiting on the pier. For 3 months, the family kept the suspect's name out of the press. Text messages later filed in a separate custody case showed family members discussing how to manage information, how to keep a 16-year-old's name out of the media. Then, on February 3, 2026, the U.S. Attorney for the Southern District of Florida filed federal charges. On February 6th, Timothy Hudson appeared in a sealed Miami courtroom. He was, at the time, charged as a juvenile. A federal magistrate judge let him go, released to live with an uncle. Electronic monitoring. The country reacted the way you would expect. Then, on April 13, 2026, a federal grand jury indicted Timothy Hudson as an adult. 2 counts. Count 1, first-degree murder. Count 2, aggravated sexual abuse. He pleaded not guilty. He is represented by federal public defenders, and under the law of the United States, he is presumed innocent until proven guilty in a court of law. If he is convicted on both counts, he faces the possibility of 2 life sentences. For months, he remained free, until June 10, 2026. That is the day U.S. Magistrate Judge Edwin G. Torres reversed himself. In his order, the judge wrote that the government's evidence for forcible rape was, quote, beyond clear and convincing. He wrote that the allegations suggested, quote, a level of psychopathy and lack of remorse. He wrote that no curfew, no monitor, no relative could be trusted to contain what this defendant might do next. 5 days later, on June 15, 2026, Timothy Hudson surrendered to the United States Marshals Service. His trial is scheduled for September of 2026. Anna's grandparents told reporters she and her stepbrother were close. Other voices, quieter ones, said she had recently told people she was uncomfortable around him. Both things cannot be true, but both things have been said. There is a photograph of her, 18 years old, standing on the deck of a ship, smiling, 2 days before she dies. She does not know that yet, but somewhere in that frame, just out of view, someone already does. Anna Kepner, June 13, 2007 to November 6, 2025. If her name matters to you, subscribe, share, say it out loud, because the loudest thing we can do for a girl who can no longer speak is refuse to let the world forget her.